Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome to R.A.R.E. I'm going to be your host for this channel, Boulanger. And in this particular video, I want to introduce the channel to you guys and tell you what we're here to do. And then I'm also going to tell you a little bit of my story, about 15 minutes worth, so that you have some background on where I come from and how I got here. All right, so let's get this thing going. First and foremost, R.A.R.E. is an acronym that stands for Real Answers for Real Experiences. See, I named this channel Rare because it is 100% rare nowadays to get real answers for what you go through. Okay? All of us have gone through different things, different phases of our life in childhood, teen years, young adulthood, and also adulthood. But the fact of the matter is, to get answers to change the course of the events of our lives, we oftentimes don't receive. You see, I've been a mental health clinician roughly 23 years now, not always licensed as a clinician, but always worked in the field, trying to serve people in the capacity of getting well. And the one thing I've watched and seen and witnessed over and over again is reoccurrence. Reoccurrence is the experience of unwellness over and over again. Okay, whether that's relationship unwellness, whether that's mental unwellness, whether that's emotional unwellness, it is the reoccurrence of those events that lead up to living unwell. And so, what I began to discover, not that I didn't know, but what I began to discover as I did the work, is that the missing piece in mental health recovery and wellness is faith in Jesus Christ. And so, what R.A.R.E is going to be, R.A.R.E is going to be a channel that creates that intersection between mental health and faith. Okay? Because the honest truth is, there is every answer, practical and spiritual, in the scriptures if we really want to recover and if we really want to live well. And so, what we're going to do is take our mental health experiences and intersect them with the scriptures, with the God of the Bible, with the Lord Jesus Christ. And we're going to create opportunity for people to live well and whole. Okay? Let me tell you why this is important to me. You see, I'm a 44-year-old married man with 4 children. Okay? And I have 3.7 grandchildren, meaning I have 3 grandchildren here and I have 1 grandchild on the way. And this channel is important to me because they're going to continue to grow up in a world that is going to continue to be broken and continue to break. You understand? You see, I've had my fair of brokenness, and let's take a journey. Let's take a journey back to 1979, which is when I was conceived. Well, I was actually probably conceived in 1978. I was born in 1979 to a 14-year-old mom and an 18-year-old dad. Okay. Now, before you act crazy and say crazy stuff, my dad would have had to be 17 when I was conceived. My mom would have been 13 when I was conceived. Now, the truth be told is neither one of their parents probably was happy about them bringing a child into this world. Okay. And neither one was happy because both sets of parents probably were in a struggle. My mom's mom was an alcoholic. My dad's dad also was an alcoholic. And so you had 2 children who create a baby. So you got 3 babies all in need of somebody to look out, supervise, teach, and train them. But with my mom's mom, that was unlikely to happen. You see, because my mom's mom was violent and she didn't believe in teaching, she believed in beating. She was assaultive with her mouth and she was assaultive with her hands. I won't give you any detail into that. Just know that she was assaultive. But what I will say about that is she believed in using the drop cord or the extension cord, which will depend on how old you are, is what term you use. She believed in uh, putting her hands on you, and she certainly believed in putting her mouth on you in an assaultive and sordid way. So there was plenty of opportunity when you was with her and around her to feel low. Okay. I remember times where now this is crazy because as a child, I remember my mom getting whoopings by my grandma. I remember times where my grandma locked my mom out of the house because she got home too late. So imagine a child bearing witness to his mom getting disciplined by her mom. You see, when we had an opportunity to move out of my grandma's house, okay, we moved to the projects. And so you go from a violent, unstable situation to a lonely situation. You see, because when we moved to the projects, I was either in kindergarten or Head Start. I can't remember which one, but I remember my mom having a job where she worked from 4A to 4P. And so she was gone when I got up to go to school, and she was gone when I got off the school bus. So here I am at 4 years old, putting myself on and off the school bus. During this time of being unsupervised between ages 4, 5, and 6, I started playing with matches and setting fires. I was breaking in homes. And to be honest, I wasn't really a criminal. Now I had deviant behavior, but I wasn't really a criminal because here's the level of my criminality. I was literally standing, me and some other kids were literally standing in the doorway of an apartment that we had broken into when the people pulled up with the door wide open. We weren't trying to get away. But see, that's what happens when you're unsupervised as a kid. That's what the Bible tells you to teach and train up a child. The Bible says foolishness is in the heart of a child. You have to drive that foolishness out. But as an unsupervised child, that foolishness just grew. You see, I remember after we almost got kicked out of the projects because of my behavior, we moved to the trailer park. So I went from a hood rat to a trailer park to trailer park trash. But in the trailer park, it was kind of pretty cool because everybody kind of had the same thing, right? Nobody really had a lot of anything. Nobody was balling. Nobody had new furniture. Nobody had, a whole lot of food to eat. Everybody was just kind of working and getting by, doing what they can do. But then the trailer park, I had a really close neighbor where I could look out of my trailer window and see his trailer window because we lived on the same exact row of the trailer park. That neighbor was my dad. But lo and behold, even though my dad was my neighbor and I could literally walk to his house in about 45 seconds, he could literally walk back to my house in 45 seconds. I don't remember a time where he ever made that trip or where I felt comfortable enough to make the trip to his house. And to make it so bad, what probably kept my dad away was that his brother had become my mom's new boyfriend and he had moved in and they bore a child together, which was my sister. You see, that's how jacked up my family is. That my sister's dad is my uncle and my dad's brother. And if you're laughing, that's cool because I laugh about it sometimes myself. But that's just the truth of the backwardness and the confusion that I was born into. You see, I'm not going to over dramatize my story. That's why I left out a whole lot of details. I'm not going to over dramatize it because it's not worth over dramatizing. And I'll tell you why here in a little bit. But several things began to happen after my sister was born. The abuse started against my mom, and we had a visitor come to visit our house, just like many black homes crack. You see, the more they got high, the more the fighting would go on. So I remember many times my mom having busted lips, black eyes, and bloody noses. I remember one time when the violence basically stopped was one night, they got into it and the fighting, the abuse went from inside the trailer to outside the trailer to across the trailer park. And me and my sister and two of the neighbors' kids, we was looking out of the window, watching my mom get slammed on the ground, stomped and punched, so on and so forth. And I remember feeling helpless as a kid, wondering and wishing that I could stop, wondering what to do and wishing I could stop it. But as a small child, 8, 9 years old, there's nothing you could do towards a grown man. But I remember several times, just like this night, running through the neighborhood to use the phone at a neighbor's house to call my grandmother. And on this particular night, where I had been watching my mom get beat up outside the home, my grandmother and my grandfather came with the truck, loaded up all our stuff, and left. And they were never together again. So we moved from that trailer park to end with my grandmother for a few weeks, and we moved into another trailer park. And I wish that even though the physical violence had stopped, I wish that the crack use would have stopped. But it made more progress. And using crack for my mom went from a Thursday, Friday, Saturday thing to an every day a week thing. And she became more distant, more unavailable, and more unaware. And we moved from trailer park to trailer park to trailer park. I remember always being embarrassed about where I lived. You see, because you don't even know that you're poor until you get exposed to people who are not poor. You see, when I was going to school, I had all kind of friends. Their parents were real estate agents and bankers, and one kid, his dad owned his own company, and it was kind of interesting to see him come to school with his dad's company paraphernalia on his book bag and on his pencils and things of that nature. Now here's what was cool. Here's what's beautiful about kids. Unless parents mess them up and teach them differences, they never know differences. Because even though I was poor, my mother was on crack, my dad was on crack, my mom was a domestic violence victim, and we lived in a trailer park. They never treated me any different. So we moved from the last trailer park. We moved into a trailer, and we lived there for about 6, 7 months, and then we moved back to the projects in Hickory, North Carolina, and and the same behavior from my mom just continued to get high, continued to be unavailable. And I remember writing my mom a letter one time when I was in 6th grade, and I asked her, would she stop using drugs? And I slid it up on her bedroom door, and she read it. She told me she read it. She cried, but she never stopped. The blessing in my life happened when I was going to the 7th grade, and my dad's mom, who I believe saved my life in some aspects, offered me an opportunity to come live with them in the country. And so I finally moved to the country to live with my dad's mom. And everything was cool there because at least home was consistent. But everybody there was getting high too. Just so happened the same crack epidemic that had hit my home had hit my grandmother's home too. Now, this is not to blaspheme or talk bad about anybody. It just was what it was. And it made things real difficult. It made the embarrassment that I felt about me and who my people were more intense. You see, because the same people that they were buying dope from were the same people that some of them I went to school with. And it's just the goodness of God that nobody ever exposed it during my school years. So, we're skipping a lot of details. Let's fast forward. We get through high school, played a lot of football, did a lot of wrestling, ran a lot of track. Nobody ever came to hold me down for real. Nobody really showed up. My grandma showed up, I think, at a football game. I don't ever remember my dad showing up at a middle school football game or a high school football game. Not a track meet, not a wrestling match. It just kind of was what it was. I had just learned to accept whatever it was for my life. It just was what it was, you know. And so, you turn 18, you think you're grown, but here's the thing about being grown at 18. I didn't know what to do with my life. I had nobody encouraging me, nobody supporting me. And the only thing I had seen in my life for a long period of time was drug use, drug selling, abuse, and inconsistency. So I didn't know what to do. So I went to work. And that's just kind of what I did, you know. I had always worked, but this time I had to have an adult kind of job, you know. And I remember just kind of following and doing whatever the TV told me to do, basically. Whatever the hip hop rappers said, do whatever, whoever was hot at that time had to do what they did. And it left me in a situation where I was chasing women, I was sexually immoral, I was hitting the club every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, drinking, even though I wasn't a drinker. I was really living a loser lifestyle because I had developed a loser mentality. You know why? Because I never knew how to win. I never had anybody tell me how to win. And when I met my wife at 21 years old, we worked together for a number of years, and she was going through some things or whatever with her personal relationship, and we kind of just went out, and 22 years later, here we are. Now, I skipped a whole lot. I just want to tell you how I got here. You see, because even though I got married and had children, I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to be a parent. I didn't know how to train. I didn't know how to teach. Number one, I had not developed a real relationship with God. I had gone to church off and on, but it had not really had a real impact on my life. I had been exposed to some things of God, worship music and teaching and things like that. I had read the scriptures, but I didn't know how to apply the scriptures. I didn't know God for myself. And so what I became as a parent was what I had experienced as a child. My grandma was violent with her mouth and her hands. Now, I never did beat my kids or anything like that, but I was definitely aggressive with my mouth. Why? Because all I knew, what was in me was coming out of me. You see, it's not. It used to be embarrassing to tell this narrative, but it's not anymore, because what I understand is that that's all that we're ever going to give other people is what we have in us to give. If I had bitterness and sadness and disappointment and misfortune deposited into me, that's all that I could give away. You understand? You see, when I tell you that mental unwellness is baked in, it was baked in due to the experiences that I had experienced. I can't look back at my life and tell you one time where there was happiness. I can't tell you one time from basically 21 backwards where life was good. And so I took all that negativity into my marriage. Get mad at my wife, knock a hole in the wall or holes in the wall. Get mad at my wife, leave walking. But what happened is I had an encounter with the Lord in 2006 where I wasn't faking salvation anymore. See, I went to church to support somebody else in their Christian walk. A friend of mine, my best friend at that time, was getting ordained to be a deacon at his church. And I was going to support him. I wasn't going to meet the Lord. And so I remember showing up at church, had my little church clothes on, shirt and tie, dress slacks or whatever. And me and my family was on the very back row. And on that particular Sunday, every song felt like it was sang for me. And every word that the preacher preached felt like he was talking directly to me. I know it was 500 or 600 people in the church, but it felt like it sounded like that he was speaking only to me. And I remember at the end of service when the altar call was to go forth. And I remember he started calling, hey, anybody wanna accept the Lord as a, come forward. And I literally remember having a conversation with my own self on the very back row saying, nah, he ain't talking to you. But see, that was the voice of the devil saying, no, don't go up there. He ain't talking to you. You already saved. But see, telling me that I was already saved was a flat out lie. I was not saved. I did not know the Lord. I did not, up until that point, accept Jesus Christ for real. Why? Because my life didn't show it. There was no fruit. And I remember going back and forth, which seemed like 5 or 10 minutes I was going back and forth, but it had to only be about 1 minute. But when I came to myself, I was standing in the middle of the aisle, not on the row anymore, but in the middle of the aisle. And I took the first step to walk down the aisle, and I put one foot after another and met the pastor down front. I was led to the back. I was led in a confession of faith, a prayer of repentance, went down in water and received the baptism, and life felt instantly changed. I had a foul mouth. I had a bad attitude. And all of that was gone instantly. Now, that's my God experience of salvation. But what most people don't know is when you get saved, your spirit, the spirit man in you is saved. But your mind has to come out next. And I had to learn that. I had to learn at that point how to be a man. I had to learn at that point how to be a father. I had to learn how to have real relationships. I had to learn how to handle money. I had to learn how to look at myself different. I had to learn how to talk to my kids different. I had to learn how to speak to my wife different. You see, because unwellness was baked in. And just because I had got saved, my soul was secure. But my mind was still jaded in experiences. You see, at this point in my life, I had already begun to help people. But if I'm honest, I did as much damage in helping people as I did good. It wasn't until I learned who I was in God that I really began to do some damage in the world of mental and emotional health. And here I am 23 years later, still trying to do damage. And that's the purpose for this channel. I want to provide real answers for real experiences. Now, there is so much more of my story that you guys will learn about as I teach and train you in some things. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot of who I am, where I've been, and how I got here. So listen, man, I hope you guys plug in, man. I hope you guys share this with your friends as far as the channel. And I hope something I said today, was encouraging. I hope that if your story sounded like mine, drug addiction in your background, abuse in your background, a loneliness was in your background, being abandoned was in your background, sadness was in your background, negativity was in your background. No, yeah, it's in you, but it doesn't have to stay there. You can make a decision today to change the course of your life forever. And as you change the course of your life, you will change the course of somebody else's life. I mean, I'm so excited, man, about getting this channel going, man. So listen, I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for the first series. The first series is going to be called Missing Parents, and it'll be a walk through life in stages 0 to 10, 11 to 18, 19 to 25, so on and so forth. And we're going to talk about how growing up with missing parents can have an impact on us later in life, and what we can do about it. So listen, man, I appreciate you guys. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is R.A.R.E. and we're out.